I do want to begin by saying that this conference would not have happened without the work of Eva, Ulva, and Margareta, who have been an unbelievable team on the ground in Gothenburg. And it's just wonderful to see how they have been able to take what had been planned to be an in-person retreat, an in-person conference, and turned it into an incredible online experience for people. And I would also like to just remind everyone that many of the presentations and all of the keynote speeches are going to be recorded and available on the conference website, which I think will be a wonderful resource for people going forward. And I would like to invite my co-presenter, Leah, to just say a quick welcome.
Well, I would definitely like to welcome all of you as well, the ones that are here with us today and the ones that are watching us from home. I would like to send best wishes to your home countries, and I have until the last minute hope that I would see all of you here, that you would just magically appear here in Gothenburg. So it's a pity that we cannot see all of you, but at the same time, I think it goes very much in line with the sustainability and resilience, right, Jeff?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Leah. So let's begin. We are titling our keynote speech, The 3 C's of Sustainability and Resilience: courage, collaboration, and celebration. I know that earlier in this reflection time, Ulva mentioned to you that these conferences have been going on for a long time. Actually, this is the 7th International Storyline Conference. The first conference being held was in Denmark in the year 2000. So it's actually been 22 years running that we've been offering these conferences. And the amazing thing to me about that is that these conferences have all been planned and organized by teachers like yourselves through the Storyline International and the Golden Circle, people working together who believe in this way of working with children. And what we'd like to share with you today is why we believe that Storyline is an excellent way of teaching sustainability and resilience. So what we're going to do is that Leah and I are both going to share with you a storyline that we've done, and I did it in 2006 with my students, and Leah did it in 2021 with her students at her school. We used the same basic storyline outline, but we were able to adapt the storyline to our own unique situations. We both strongly believe in the importance of teaching sustainability and resilience. Our children live in a world that is facing many environmental, social, and economic challenges, and we see Storyline as an ideal approach that empowers children to be the change makers of their world. As we worked together on the keynote address, we observed 3 characteristics that helped our storylines to be powerful and effective: courage, collaboration, and celebration. We'll look at those more closely at the end of our talk, but for now, Leah is going to share about how the 2 of us developed our storyline collaboration and friendship. That's one of the things you should know about Storyline. You may begin by working with other teachers on a storyline for your students, but you could end up making lifelong friends. So Leah, I'll turn it over to you.
Actually, it is very interesting for me to share that my storyline journey started here in Gothenburg in Sweden in 2008 with a conference that was organized by this amazing team that is actually organizing the conference this weekend here as well. And this is when I met you, Jeff, and this is where our journey actually started. So I attended the workshop with Steve Bell, and the ones that had a chance to meet Steve, you're not probably sure if you're there because of the workshop or because of Steve having the workshop. But it was definitely a very powerful experience for me to go through the storyline workshop and to take it then with me back to Slovenia, my home country, and try it out with the students as part of my diploma thesis at that time. Well, then the next, of course, there were many things that happened in between. We will just highlight the bigger events that happened related to storyline. And definitely the next bigger event was that we were both the keynote speakers at the 5th, or is then the 4th, International Storyline Conference, which was in Reykjavik in Iceland. And then after the conference, we were both, me and Jeff, elected to the International Storyline International Leadership Team, with a mission of being a storyline ambassadors for spreading the word about storyline as much as possible. Then another bigger event, I would say an enormous event, was the project that has put on us, that we organized the international conference, the last one in Ljubljana, Slovenia. And it was the conference that was actually organized remotely from the USA, Sweden, Iceland, and Scotland. And it just, the fact that we couldn't just jump to Slovenia and make sure that everything was in place made it very difficult for us to actually plan the conference. So it's been an enormous project. At the same time, when I'm reflecting back on that time and the whole process and the 3 years of preparations for this big weekend, I also believe that being in different countries has brought us to closer together and has put storyline in different and in an even higher focus related to storyline. So we have actually heard during the presentations yesterday and today that we see thousands of young people taking over the streets, demanding the climate action, and that they are no longer actually really happy with the words we are promising them, that they demand action now, and they do not relate with what we're promising them for the future. And it's very obvious that schools must prepare them for jobs that have not yet been created and for the future that seems very uncertain. And we all need to share that responsibility, not just put it on politicians, but we are part of the bigger community, and we can, with the smaller actions, make a difference, like Bella said today in the morning. And to navigate through such uncertainty, students will need to develop both curiosity, imagination, and of course resilience and self-regulation. And they will need to cope with failures and being rejected. They need to learn how to cope with such strategies. And Eva has actually mentioned during the first opening presentation of the conference that the Swedish National Agency for Education has released a report about how to work with sustainability. And it actually is a very interesting report. And in my position as a principal of the school, it is also very important for me to prepare my staff and team with the strategies that they actually can work with sustainability. And in this report and the action plan, which we principals received in our hands in order to create the plan for your own school, it was a lot about proactive leadership, collaboration with the surrounding society, that it should have the student-inclusive approach, and that the pedagogical, holistic way of working should be implemented. And for me, of course, this is storyline. And when I was preparing my way of leading the teaching in my school for sustainability, I have been reflecting a lot about it. I felt I could not just walk in the staff room and say, hey guys, teach for sustainability and good luck. And I felt I need to come to them and say, and first show them that I really care, that I really want them to take that on them with a responsibility towards the students we have, the children we have in our school. So that was the reflection time I had, and I felt like the storyline is the key, which I want to share with the staff of my school. So storyline is built on different principles, and Jeff will now share with you more about the principles of storyline.
So as Leah has said, we want to make the case that storyline is a powerfully effective approach to teach sustainability and resilience. And we'd like to take a quick look at the principles that really underlie all of the storyline work that teachers and students do together. The first principle, story. We use the international language of story to integrate the curriculum. Every human being, regardless of what language he or she speaks, understands that the language of story is the language of meaning. We understand ourselves and the world around us through the language of story. Anticipation. As with any good story, students become involved and anticipate what's going to happen next. They care about what's happening as the story progresses because they've had a part in creating the story. The teacher's line. The teacher carefully plans the storyline collaboratively with other teachers to meet the curriculum goals that are required. And in addition, the teacher lines up real-world experiences with field trips and visiting experts to assure that the learning is tied to the students' lives, to their communities, and to the natural world around them. Ownership. Because the storyline is created together with the teacher in the class community, each student has a strong sense of ownership. This builds personal agency as students see that their contributions can have an impact in the greater world around them. Context. Whether the setting for the storyline is real or imaginary, it's a context that's created by the students collectively. Every student has a voice that is valued, and so the context for the story is owned by everyone. Structure before activity. Teachers support all learners by providing appropriate structures so that students, regardless of their ability, have the courage to try everything and to stretch outside of their comfort zone. And finally, respect. All of the above principles add up to a culture of respect in the classroom. The students respect the teacher because they feel listened to and valued, and the teacher respects the students for their prior knowledge and for their commitment to making a difference. So now we'd like to begin by sharing our storylines, and I'm going to begin with my storyline with Sustainability Superheroes. So now we move on. I'll begin with a little bit of background. I was teaching at the Metropolitan Learning Center in Portland, Oregon, which was a kindergarten through 12th grade school. And I wrote this storyline with 4 other teachers who taught 4th, 5th, and 6th grades. We had planned a week-long trip for our classes to an environmental learning center on Bainbridge Island in Puget Sound off the coast from Seattle. And we wanted this trip to be the beginning of a storyline on sustainability, as this is a central theme of Islandwood. We knew that storyline would give the children a real reason to learn, and they could learn all that they could from this experience. So this environmental learning center, Islandwood, was built with children and sustainability in mind. Here's a quote from their mission statement. Increasing climate literacy is central to our work in environmental education and to creating a more equitable and sustainable world. We believe strongly that inspiring action for the environment requires increased knowledge and awareness about the environment. Now, the following slides that I'm going to share with you were created by my students when I did this storyline. They selected the pictures and they chose the words to tell the story. I was often asked to speak to pre-service teachers when I was still in the classroom, and I would take a few of my students with me so that they could do the presentation. I always had more courageous students who wanted to go with me than I had room in my car, so it was hard to choose. This is the presentation that they prepared for one of those visits. So I'll try to do as good a job as they did. Our storyline began with 2 guiding questions. These guiding questions are big, overarching questions that we ask at the beginning of the storyline, and then we revisit them throughout the topic. They're not questions with one right answer, but they are questions to live with and to grow with as new knowledge is gained and new ideas emerge. So those 2 questions were, how can we reduce the size of our environmental footprint at MLC? And how do we walk the earth as relatives of all that live? These questions were designed to keep the students focused on sustainability and resilience and to their relationship to the natural world. The second question came from a Sioux Indian prayer. So our first episode was the invitation. Here's what the students had to say. When we started our storyline, our principal Pam asked us to reduce the environmental footprint of MLC by becoming sustainability superheroes. She suggested that our trip to Islandwood would be an excellent opportunity to learn all about sustainability and what kinds of superpowers might be used to accomplish this goal. The key questions for this first episode were, will you take the challenge to become a sustainability superhero and make a difference at MLC? And what are the costs and what are the benefits? Of course, the students were all on board, and so we were off with our journals and our questions to research all that we could about sustainability with our guiding questions in mind. Pam thought we could get ideas for our superheroes on our trip to Islandwood, an environmental learning center on Bainbridge Island. This is the garden at Islandwood. It grew some of the produce that we ate when we were there. So this second episode was the research. And the key question for this episode was, what might we learn at Islandwood that will help us to reduce the environmental footprint at MLC? Our trip to Islandwood, we had to be at school at 5:30 in the morning to take a bus to Seattle and then a ferry to Bainbridge Island and Islandwood. Can you imagine the logistics of getting 100 9 to 12-year-olds to school with a suitcase, a sack lunch, and all the necessary field gear so that they could be on the bus at 5:30 a.m.? It was no small task. We had to leave so early because we had a 4-hour drive and then a half-hour ferry ride, followed by another half-hour bus trip just to get to Islandwood. We had quite a caravan with 2 large buses and several parent volunteers in cars. The following slides highlight our experiences at Islandwood. The kids had to say this. We were really excited to be here. Throughout the 4 days we were at Islandwood, we did learn a lot about sustainability. These next few pictures show some of the things that we learned. This was the food waste weigh station and was used to weigh out our food at every meal. It was pretty incredible. The goal over the 4 days was to reduce our food waste, and I think at our first dinner, we had close to 100 pounds of food waste. By the end of our stay, that was down to less than 10 pounds. Not bad for a group of 125. The living machine filtered the gray water from the kitchen and dining room through tanks of plants, which filtered the water, cleaning it so that it could be reused. We went down to the estuary at the bay to learn about estuaries, where we used nets and magnifying glasses to explore the rich ecosystems where fresh and salt water mix. We went on the suspension bridge and looked into the ravine. This long suspension bridge allowed the children to sit and write an observational journal about what they could see in the ravine below. The bridge was very bouncy, so getting the kids to actually sit down and write was a bit of a challenge, but ultimately we were successful. There was a floating classroom, and we took turns driving the classroom into the middle of Max Pond. We looked at things in the water with microscopes. With dip nets, the children discovered the variety of plant and animal life in this aquatic ecosystem and learned how everything is interconnected. The tree house is built around a huge tree. It's on the edge of the marsh. It allowed the students to observe the forest canopy with the help of field guides and binoculars. When we returned from Islandwood, the students created this huge glass project, and it was sold at our school auction. The squares in this quilt of glass captured something from each student's experience at Islandwood. The parent volunteer who orchestrated this project asked me if we could make another glass quilt for her son's bedroom because she had lots of extra glass. You can imagine my surprise when on the last day of school, the class presented me with that glass quilt. Every student had made a tile that shared something about our time together that year. Yes, there were tears on my but they were tears of gratitude. So back at school, we began episode 3 of the storyline, which was my superhero, or the characters. The key question was, who will my superhero be and what power will he or she have that will contribute to making a smaller footprint for MLC? Each superhero had to choose a superpower and justify how that superpower was sustainable. As you can see, each student had a cape and a mask, which was made out of plaster, and we had moms in the class who sewed those for every student in the 4 classes. They wrote biographies of their superheroes, and each superhero got a section of the class bulletin boards to paint their superhero lockers where their capes and masks were stored. They wore their superhero outfits when they were working on the storyline. So here you can see just a few of those. Episode 4, the projects. We created a coalition of superheroes to decide on a project to reduce our environmental footprint. Our coalition is the Sustainables. The key question was, what projects could our superheroes take on that would address some of the problems we see around the school? Each coalition had students from all 4 classes based on their interests. The coalition I worked with named themselves the Sustainables, and their motto was, shaking hands with nature. The other coalition decided to apply for our school to become a green school through the State Department of Education. The students said this about their coalition. Our coalition is designing a bioswale for the teachers' parking lot at our school. It's a fun project, but it takes a lot of time. We learned that there was too much impermeable surface around the school, so if we could capture some of the water that was currently running off into the storm sewers, we could reduce the size of our environmental footprint. This would also help the ecosystem of the Willamette River, which runs through the middle of Portland, where the stormwater regularly overflowed during heavy rain. This would help us to walk the earth as relatives of all that live. So episode 5 was the plan. We went on a hike through Forest Park with Judy Bluehorse to learn about native plants that we could put in our bioswale. The key questions were, what do we need to do? How do we get the resources we need? How do we educate the rest of our community about what we're doing and why? Native American educator Judy Bluehorse was a great help to us as we identified native plants. And then we had the presentation. Episodes, we have divided into 6 groups, and each group is preparing a presentation about some aspect of the bioswale. The groups are native plants, grant writing, restriping the parking lot, public relations for teachers and parents, public relations for students, and supplies. Episode 6 was the celebration, and the key questions were, how can we share the work of our sustainability superheroes with the rest of the MLC community? And how can we encourage others to join us in creating a smaller footprint of MLC? We had an open house for family and friends where the children shared their 2 projects, which were still in the works, and they introduced their families to their superheroes and shared their Islandwood journals, which also contained all their research during the storyline. The final episode of the storyline was reflection, as is always the case with the storyline. And the key questions were, what did I learn from becoming a sustainability superhero? How has this experience changed the way I think about the world, the environment, and my place in it? And how have I learned to reduce my own environmental footprint? The children shared these reflections at their end of the year portfolio conference with their parents. The storyline ended in the spring with a celebration, and the following fall, the students had the opportunity to join an elective class to continue working on building the bioswale. These students worked for 2 years, writing grants, getting permits from the city, and making sure that the bioswale actually got built. The city decided to make a video showing what kids can do to contribute to sustainability and resilience.
Well, thank you, Jeff, for sharing this very inspiring and interesting project you did with your students, which we adopted to our needs at Rösjötorp. And before I jump into presenting the project we did, I would like to just share a few words about our school first. Well, we are one of 25 Vittra schools in Sweden, and what makes us unique is that Rösjötorp International is actually the only international school within Vittra family, and we are the only bilingual school, which means that we have English and Swedish as our working languages in our school. Well, what is common for all of the Vittra schools is that we work with conscious learning and courageous culture. We want our students to be aware of their own learning, development, as well as what is happening in society around them. And in order to be powerful, we use different manifestations in our teaching. And one of the manifestations we use is work with community goals, which means that we have converted actually Agenda 2030 into local community goals. We call them kvartersmålen. And we did many different projects related to the global goals for sustainable development throughout the years in different ways. And I started to feel more and more the need that we need to collaborate across the classes, not just to have separate projects, but try to unite in one bigger theme and make something that would show that we need each other in order to be powerful, that we need to collaborate. So I have decided to do something about it. In June, during the last planning days, I asked the teachers before summer to look into the Agenda 2030 and plan which of the goals they think they would connect to the curriculum goals they have in their classes. So they all planned the work they did. I have many of the teachers here, so I can recall all the planning days we had in June. And then I took that with me, and as my brain can go quite crazy when I am off, and when I have days off I can get very creative, I was walking around with those Agenda 2030 goals, and I was thinking, how can we really reach out towards the students in order to be powerful? And I came up that, well, why not creating a storyline project? So I had a video call booked with Jeff during summer, and beside that we were catching up on everything that we've been missing throughout the last years, I said, well, Jeff, here I am. I really want to get my teachers to use storyline, not only for, of course, sustainable questions and projects related to sustainability, but also for different purposes as well. And in this particular case, I really wanted to connect it to the Agenda 2030. And then Jeff said to me, but well, Leah, I did that project, Sustainability Superheroes, why don't you give it a try as well yourself? And then he sent me the outline of your project, and I said, well, this is exactly what we're looking for at Vittra Rösjötorp at the moment. Then it is also important to mention that I was aware that the majority of my teachers at that time have not went through the formal workshop about storyline, so I was risking that we will completely fail in our work. At the same time, I was aware that most or some of the aspects might be storyline and some might not be storyline, and I felt that we have something that we can then build on. They will see the power of motivation that storyline creates, and this might make my teachers even more curious about storyline itself. So I came in August to my teachers and I said, well guys, I have a plan for you and for the students, and luckily I have a wonderful team that is willing to jump into trying new things, and we said, let's give it a try. I will try to guide as much as possible. I know that Jeff was there on site as well, willing to come and help from distance. So we had a plan that we would actually create this as possible sustainable Sollentuna, which is the municipality where our school is located. So what we did is that we looked into the Agenda 2030, the curriculum goals again, and we decided what setting would fit best for the project that they would do in their classes. And this was also the way for me to make it easier for my teachers to understand that we need to place this story into time, into place, and starting with a place I felt was the best way to break through. So what we decided is that in F class, which are the 6-year-olds, that we will create forest and the area around our school. In grade 1, that they would connect their storyline to the life below water. We have a beautiful lake next to our school. Then in grade 2, they focused on local grocery store connected to the topics recycling and garden to table, as we have also our own garden at our school. Then grade 3, they would focus on forest and animal species. In grade 4, they would monitor all of the industry that is happening in our municipality. And grade 5, sustainable city in general, as the whole community, how would actually one city looks as sustainable as possible. And then grade 6, they have created an institution that would actually monitor all of the other institutions within the municipality and sort of guide them how they can further improve in order to be more sustainable and resilient. So we started off our project with the letter which I wrote to all of the students. I wrote in my letter that I am, of course, very concerned about what is happening, not only around the world, but also in Sweden. We had different climate changes that we start to notice also in Sweden. And I wanted to show them that it's not really happening far away, but that it's here as well. And that I need them help in order to be powerful and reach out towards our local community, how we can further improve Sollentuna as a municipality. So what all of the classes did in F class up to grade 3, they read a book about Greta and the Giants, written by Zoe Tucker, which is also a book that is published, and you can find it online. It is translated into many languages. So I would strongly recommend you to find it and read it for you, even read it for your students, even if you don't do any bigger projects around that. So every class read a book, and in the older classes, 4 to 6, they watched a documentary about Greta. And then after the discussions, teachers started to share my letter, which I've sent to all of the classes, and then they discussed if they would be willing to join me on my mission to make our municipality as sustainable as possible. And in Jeff's storyline, it was also the principal who was involved in the start of their project. And I truly believe that it is important that the school leadership is involved in such questions, because we show that we truly care, that we want the change that we ask and look for. So try to get your leaders to be your equal partners, and if you're a leader, get involved. So we started our storyline by creating the settings, and this way we felt it would be easier to place our students in the content of the whole story. And then every class created their own setting, and here you can see some of the settings that we created. This is the grade 3 setting. They created a forest. And then here we have grade 1 freezes with the lakes that they created. Here is the grade 5 green avenue and the sustainable city. And then in F class, the 6-year-olds created their own version of forest. So then after the setting, of course we had different and also questions related to each topic, and it's difficult to go into all of the details now, but we have just 5 minutes left.
Yes.
Okay. Then we created the superheroes, and all of the classes created their own versions of the superheroes. So I guess I need to speed up, right, Jeff? And then all of the classes created their biographies as well. And of course it was connected to their age and the abilities and the goals we had. So in upper classes you can go more in writing the text and more deeper in the biographies, while in the younger classes you might just look for some basic words. So what we did then is that we created different incidents connected to different storyline content and projects, and one that was common for all of the classes was that I got in touch with Sollentuna municipality and described the work that we are doing, and they were very fascinated about the work, and they wrote a letter to our students and told them that they would come and visit us for the United Nations Day celebration, which is a big event we celebrate in our school. So we got the local politician and the local lady that is responsible for the environmental department in Sollentuna municipality to come in our school. Then one of the incidents, which was also a very interesting one, was that we have quite interesting grade 5 and grade 6 students that tend to provoke us quite often. And we felt like we need to find a way to reach out to their provocations and questions they have. So I met them together with teacher, and we asked them, well, should we join Greta? We are actually very close to her every Friday, and we decided to show with her the work we do in our storyline and go and show her that we truly care. So we came to Greta on that Friday, and it was a very special moment for our students, not just for the students, but both for me and Adam, I guess, as well. And our students were speechless, they were starstruck, they couldn't say anything, they just looked into Greta, and I had to really talk our way towards Greta and say, well, hi Greta, we came to show what our mission at Vittra Rösjötorp is related to climate change. So we ended up our project with a celebration, which was then one of the politician and one of the local department lady that came to meet our students, and they had a mission was that they would, in the end of the project, create a document which we would then hand over towards Sollentuna municipality for them to take home to their municipality, the tips how we in our school see that they should develop further Sollentuna. Well, as we are running short with time, I cannot go much in those details, but here are some of the review and reflection. Like Jeff said, that every good storyline, and I believe all of the work we do in schools need to end with some reflection and evaluation. We had some good reflections coming from our students, and for me, one that was very interesting was that this Ari that said, our grade 3 student that said, I never thought that we could actually do something to protect nature around us, but when the people from Sollentuna municipality came to our school, I could feel that they exist for real, and they can make things change if they want. So for them it was just a little bit surrealistic that do they actually really exist? So, well, storyline is definitely methodology that is empowering us in different ways. And I can just say for myself throughout the years that it has been a very powerful way for me to work throughout the preschool where I worked, school, in different countries as well. And I could use it on different levels, in different ways. So, what is, I think, important is that we need to empower our children. If we want to do that, we first need to empower ourselves. And I think the morning lecture from Pella was very interesting in how we need to find answers within ourselves first, toward if we want to then act and do something about the change we all wish for, but we tend to just quickly forget about it. So get your students a voice. They have a lot to say. Listen to them with respect and try to engage them in all of the questions. And it's really important to cultivate courage, collaboration, and celebration. So, Jeff, we don't have much time left, but we have some things to share, right?
Yes, we can do it. We can race to the finish line here. So you've seen how storyline can be a powerful key. Courage, showing up for teachers who choose to teach sustainability and resilience using the storyline approach. It takes courage to teach in a way that's different than the norm. It takes courage to put the students' interests first. It takes courage to address real-world issues in the classroom. It takes courage to really listen to students. It takes courage to go public with what you've accomplished in your classroom, and it takes courage to open your classroom to other teachers and parents.
Yes, and then the second one is collaboration, and we have been talking a lot about collaboration in different sessions as well. It was very interesting to see how in all of the good storylines there is so much of collaboration going on. And not only that teachers but also students depend on each other, and they need to plan together, they need to develop and support each other. And just to lift some off, the important one is that I think both Steve and Sally have been showing they are good role models of collaboration and how their work has been spread around the world with, all the voluntary work and many of the things that, the efforts that have been behind without going out for any profit. And it's amazing. So many lifelong friendships have been actually developed because of good collaboration within storyline. And then the last one is
Celebration. It's challenging to teach using storyline, and we think it's so important that teachers take the time to celebrate the good work that they do. Celebration is a way to acknowledge good work that's done, and it's also a way to renew and restore and re-energize so you can keep on doing the great work with children that you teach. So here are some ways that celebration can show up. Storyline honors the student's work by sharing it with an audience of people who care. The class community develops a sense of accomplishment. Storyline teachers feel that they're making a difference in the lives of their students. They develop projects that have a direct impact on families and their communities. And the hard, meaningful work that you do deserves to be celebrated. Celebration helps us all involved to rest, relax, and renew so that we can move on to the next storyline. So We all know that we're living in really challenging times. The world that we're living in is going through some catastrophic changes, and change is always scary and unpredictable. And yet there are many things that don't change, which can keep us moving forward with action and hope. The natural world has an amazing ability to recover, regenerate, and renew if we work together to restore the environment we've damaged. Connecting children to the natural world helps them to see that they're part of that world, and it inspires them to be a part of the solution. Children are resilient, yes, and they are also powerful voices for change. Storyline provides children with an approach that allows their voices to be heard in their families, their schools, and their communities. And finally, Storyline empowers teachers to create learning environments that bring the important issues of the day into the classroom. Learning has real purpose when it's connected to positive action in the lives of the children.
Yes, and I would just like to end up the whole keynote with a reflection we got from our great student Sigrid that said that I want to be like Greta and do something that can help protect our planet. I wished grown-ups could be superheroes like our characters so that things can really change for the better. So help students become superheroes, and do not forget that there will one day be grown-ups who will change things for the better. Thank you.